They tried to escape. You can be seen, you can identify the individuals, you can see they're obviously children as opposed to men and women, and they are stacked like little piles of cordwood near the doors where they shoot 3 or 4 of them at a time, where they try to escape back in. People cried when they left this movie because there is no doubt, it is not a fiction movie, it's not fabricated. Where they got all the information from was out of the court record and everything that was subpoenaed to the Freedom of Information Act. But here's something I'm not sure that they stressed even in this movie. Were they Americans that were flying the aircraft that took these pictures? Do you know that they were not? Does everybody understand that British operational personnel, British military personnel were flying the aircraft on that particular site of Waco?
No.
Now, an interesting thing, if you listen to the BBC or if you watch British television, you would know this because they were bragging about it because they sent these pieces of equipment to the United States to be used there. Now, another interesting thing, and people have seen this and people complain about the different videos, but the fact of the matter is, it is demonstrated in the London press that Russian personnel were on site from psychological warfare units to use technology on the Davidians during that 51-day siege. That's documented. That can be demonstrated. It is reported by the control press even, but overseas where we don't get to see it. An interesting point, and the difference to differentiate between the two mechanisms, the foreign press as opposed to ours. And the foreign press isn't any freer, it's just that they like to rub it American way. When you look at all of the United Nations operations overseas, here in America they're always called NATO operations. Right now we're in Bosnia-Herzegovina. Right now we're right in the middle of the fight. We're going to probably get our people shot if we're not careful again. Most likely they have been, we're just not being told about it. Remember, they control the press better now, and the press has been told what to say. But an interesting point is, if you look at the developments and how they worked this whole program out, how they plugged it in and put it together, whenever you see it overseas, watch the satellite feeds. This program is presently being generated on satellite feed. If you watch your satellite feeds, you listen to the Canadians, you listen to Mexico, you listen to Europe, you listen to Africa, you watch the Asian stations. Do you know what they call it in Bosnia? They call it a United Nations operation. The only place where they call it a NATO exercise is here. To dumb down the supposed free people of America. Now, it's like what happened. I'm going to run this in because this is like what happened when Iraq invaded Kuwait. Should be noted. What was the most important story? We always like this one. The most important story, the way you can tell when something's going on in the world. What was the most important story for 2 going on 3 days when Kuwait was invaded? Zsa Gabor slaps a cop. It was on headline news. It was the first story of the day. It was the front page of Detroit Sleaze Presence News. Okay? Now what's wrong with this picture? We've got what is obviously going to escalate into a major action. And again, watch this hand, ignore where this one's grabbing. And when it's done, it won't be going anywhere anyway. The point being that again, this is an example of how the press was controlled. One of the points being, and I noticed a mention about the babies here, that is important because we've been told that we're so smart nowadays, we could never catch on to the fault. We could never be fooled by propaganda. And I knew as soon as I started hearing that in the press before Kuwait, that you better start grabbing your hind end and getting ready to pay attention because something was going to happen. Sure enough, Kuwait was invaded, and these stories started showing up about the Iraqi atrocities to the Kuwaiti people, and everybody was told, "Oh, you can't ridicule that story. Don't ridicule those stories. You can't argue with them." Turns out it was a propaganda company out of New York that fabricated the entire thing, and the little girl they showed on television was the daughter to the ambassador to Kuwait here in the United States. She wasn't in Kuwait when anything happened. It was a total fiction and fabrication. The story about the babies being ripped from the incubators so they could take the incubators back to Iraq, it didn't even happen. It didn't exist, didn't take place. But again, we've been told we're so smart. Remember, that company, we're so smart. We would never be fooled by anything like that. Again, here, have a crack. That's exactly what it was like. That's how they've been treating us. So what we have now is a situation where, for a change, we have ultimate tools. It's a different story from even 5 years ago or 4 years ago, where because we have become more refined, we are now being inundated from another source, or what is now being called the alternative source. In reality, I think all of you can agree it's a real reporting, it's the actual source. I challenge everybody, and I did this today again. I told these young men that I was talking to, I said, I'll tell you what, have some fun with your VCR. It's the first of the year. You can even probably use this for one of your classes with you and them. Take your VCR and set it at the top of the hour, and then 10 minutes after, and then reset it for the bottom of the hour and 10 minutes after that. And do that for 10 hours straight and walk away. Don't watch it. Just walk away. At the end of the day, come back, pull the tape out, reset the machine, plug the tape back in, and now sit down and watch it. What you will see is a classic example of controlled propaganda. A story which will start at 6 in the morning and how it will be morphed by 6:30, 7 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock. The images will be changed, if not altered. The words will be changed because the social engineers that are managing CNN will tell them, no, you're not supposed to use this word, tweet. You use these words instead to get this point across. We want to vilify this person in a certain way. We want to attack this person another way. Now let me give you the best example of that in more recent times yet again. Does anybody remember the first few hours when the Davidians were attacked in their church and home? I do, and I have it on videotape when they showed on ABC a picture of the whole congregation in a room like this center area here where all the people were together. And the words that were spoken were, the suspected white supremacist group in Waco, Texas, and right at the front were 7 black people, and there were 2 other Asian people, and black person. Half the congregation was black. But what they were counting on was a test to see how dumb down we are. Well, we won't ask any questions. Well, who the heck was in that picture? Well, the strangest white supremacists I've ever seen. You see what I mean? How that works or how it doesn't plug in? But they tried it. The fact of the matter is, and to demonstrate how arrogant these people are, they tried to plug that in. And even with the picture in front of us, and we are very as if this is all we were going to do with it. Well, of course, in some cases it is. It's a combination of collection and some little sensory input here with the audio. But a little thing like the videotape, the audio tape, and printed matter still are excellent supplemental or survival tools to make sure that we get our points across. Now, there's one problem that I do have with what I have seen in the past, and even what I'm seeing now, is ridicule after the fact. Most everything that was done by everybody in the Patriot movement is not perfect per se. Or, more importantly, here's what happens. As we release information, the other side realizes that the heat's going to be bearing on a particular target. So they will dance sideways. They will shift left to right. The minor details that are usually debated over nowadays are not relevant. A good example is what we were talking about right here. Again, in front of us, the discussion here in this article in Time Magazine, and then the advertisement on the very next page. And yet, we will be so concerned about trying to counter some of the nonsense generated by our opposition, which wastes resources and time. Instead, there is a basic rule that American generals learned a long time ago. Attack, 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 attack. Well, the other side knows that very well. Make no mistake about it. What did I say earlier? One of the points being made. The ATF has never backed down. I can show you videotapes of the sessions in the Senate where the ATF was brought before them for abuses, for shooting a man in his home that was unarmed, or beating a woman in her own home with a warrant that was improper and was through suspicion that was unfounded. Were these 1997 tapes? 1995? Oh, perhaps 1990. No, these are tapes from the Senate hearings from 1981 and 82. Not anything has changed, except that the abuses have become more excessive. What I'm fascinated by now is our opposition is trying this. Now, this program is on 103.5 FM, locally in Detroit today. When this character, who sounds like he's working closely with a lot of other operations that are anti-American, started commenting on things like Ruby Ridge and Waco, it was like, oh, well, yeah, those are bad, and oh, I know they're bad, but we're still waiting for someone to go to court, like he's sitting there with a stopwatch.